everybody. My name is Shortline819, and welcome back to. We're going to be playing Kerbal Space Program today. Hello, Crimson. I hope you're doing well. Got the Subnautica soundtrack in the background. I think it might be a bit low, but oh well, it's a very low part of the song. If y'all can hear the music, you can definitely hear that. If y'all can hear the music well enough, that's fine. Maybe I might need to turn it up a little bit more. But this is gonna be a relatively short stream today, mostly because I wanted to prove that I was still alive. I haven't been in much of a streaming mood recently, so I've just not bothered. So because of that, yeah, I was going to stream KSP tomorrow night as well, but I just kind of wanted to get some quick and dirty things done in Kerbal Space Program and prove to all of you that I am not, in fact, dead. I am alive. So last time, what we did in Kerbal Space Program was I might have to turn up the music a little bit. Let me go ahead and do that. Maybe just the music ever so slightly. Okay. Is that good? Can you all hear it better? Just taking a break before I get up early in the morning. Yes, yes. So last time, we put our fuel depot in orbit. Where is it? The Calypso Fuel Depot. We put this in orbit, and we put it in orbit, and I just kind of left it there, you know, the month ago when I streamed Kerbal Space Program at this point. Yep, here you are. And the pretty much the only thing I kind of want to do today is we have a couple of upper stages that are just in various orbits around Kerbin, and ideally, I would want to get them to dock to this. So that is what we are going to do. Probably won't take too long. He says.
We have had an anomaly.
Hello, Gam. Welcome in. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna be doing. I don't think the last time I streamed, I don't think Artemis 2 had launched. But I guess I mean, what can I say about Artemis 2 that hasn't already been said? I don't think I can really say much. That was definitely the coolest mission I've ever watched, and I've been watching launches and spaceflight since I was old enough to have a conception that this was even a thing that happened. There's more than that came from. I'm sure if Spud pops in, me and them will have a conversation about like Artemis 3 or whatever. But this is gonna, as I said, this is gonna be a short stream. We're just gonna take our little fuel depots or our little tugs, and we'll bring them to the depot, I guess. Now let me get up the alarm clock because I want to see. There is a Moho transfer window in 48 days. That might be something for us to look into. Actually, sending like a tiny little probe to Moho. Oh yeah, that's something I have to do. I have to go ahead and well, keep the auto strut, but I have to go ahead and what is it? Yeah, it's in hibernation. I have to get the stage out of hibernation. And I have to go ahead and get this thing into an orbit where it will intercept. Okay, yeah. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get this into an orbit where it will actually intercept the set as target. Oh, I don't know why I'm selected one of those. So yeah, we're just going to be doing Rendezvous today. That's pretty much all we're going to be doing, I guess. Go ahead and... we might have to drop ourselves down, actually. 61, obviously we don't want to drop ourselves down into the atmosphere. That would be not so good. Just... that is very low. It's just a matter of fiddling around with these maneuver nodes. But how has everyone been? I hope everyone's been doing okay. 200 meters second to delta V, and then up here I guess we can do another warp. Get ourselves more aligned. Yeah, maybe not that much. Hope everyone's been doing well. I've been doing, you know, this week has been fine. Nothing too crazy has occurred. Typically doing school stuff. I had an exam at the beginning of this week. It was for my hardest class, which was my accounting class, but, that went well. I got an 80, which is high for that class, so I'm quite pleased by that. So that's actually getting close right there. Hold up. There we go. We got the burns that we need to do. So I'm quite pleased by that. There's also, I mean, that's pretty much it. I really didn't do much else this week. Continued working on some Washington, Ohio stuff in my free time. I don't know, I hung out with friends, you know, anime club chicanery as always. And that's really it. Tomorrow, I still have to do a bit more homework, and then, of course, I relax. And we will be streaming more Kerbal Space Program, of course, tomorrow, hopefully, if everything goes well. And yeah, I don't really have too many weeks left of the semester. I really only have maybe like 3 or 4 weeks left till the semester wraps up. My finals is the second week of May, I want to say. I probably should know that, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's just a matter of finishing up the last couple of assignments and readings and whatnot, and I am getting there's a bit of a burnout effect going on, which always occurs before at the end of the semester, I think. Well, I don't need the smart ASS, so I just realized that the Strategic Stream Initiative thing is covering up some things. But let's go ahead and begin our burn then. Our first burn. Got a light. Little 70 meters per second burn right here. Nothing too crazy. Cut off, and then, of course, trim with the rest of the RCS. And I did get out a video. Next one is only 29 meters a second delta V burn, and that's in 4 hours, so we have to warp around a little bit. I did get out a video. I remade my Bayonne Bridge video. I think it's a lot better than the original version of that video. And of course, I needless to say, pretty much all of last week, beginning, I basically just followed the Artemis 2 flight, which, I mean, I can't really say anything that I think hasn't been said by a bajillion other people at this point. Yeah, I was just in awe, and it was really fun to watch, and I absolutely get when people say, you know, people who were alive during Apollo, and it's like, oh yeah, those missions were special. This mission was special. And there's more where that came from, of course. We got Artemis 3, hopefully coming up. They're targeting the middle of next year. I think it's probably going to be the end of next year, or maybe even early 2028, but that's the the test of the landers in low Earth orbit, which I have plenty of thoughts on. And then hopefully a year after, whenever Artemis 3 occurs, you have Artemis 4, which of course will be the landing. But you got a bunch of other stuff in the meantime. Of course, there's excuse me, I'm tired. There's Starship testing. You know, Flight 12 is coming up rather quickly within the next couple of weeks. Got a whole bunch of uncrewed lunar landers. New Glenn is going to fly on Saturday, the first time they're planning to reuse a booster. So, yeah, it just feels like in the realm of spaceflight, everything has gone really fast over the past, I don't know, couple of months. But oh well. And you were a guest in another video. You absolutely put out a video where we rode the safety ride of Atlanta, which no longer, don't think exists anymore. I forget when they're doing the next-gen bus network implementation. They might have already started it. I just don't remember because I've been so busy with other things. There wasn't another video, yes. Ugh. This fuel depot's gonna... Tomorrow is next gen. That's... Okay, yeah. I knew it was occurring sometime around... I was thinking, is it today, actually? But no, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. So, the Atlanta safety ride will no longer exist. And also the Rapid A is opening. The first phase of the Rapid A, which will be really nice. That'll probably be the first thing when I get back to Atlanta after I'm done with school down here for the semester. That's probably one of the first things I'm gonna do, besides just rot for a day, is go and ride the Rapid A. The half-baked BRT, I mean, that's just most BRTs in the United States, minus, like, Miami. So, it's better than nothing. I'm curious to see. Sorry, I was yawning there. I am a bit tired, if you cannot tell. As it probably won't be a long stream, maybe like 40 minutes or so. Half-bakes and the stations aren't completed yet. That is true, the stations are not done. I mean, other than that, like, from what I've read, the Rapid A, in terms of American-style BRTs, is looking actually a bit rather promising. But I guess we'll see, and I will interpret when I go ahead and ride it in, you know, in about a month's time or something. Okay. Coming up on this burn, 30.1 meters a second. He streams! Yes, Spud, I stream. So we're gonna go ahead and put a good light. 2.5 meters a second. Finish that off with the RCS. I probably should, like, check my RCS levels, which, I mean, okay, 200, that's fair. Gives Richmond, but slightly better vibes. I mean, that's not hard to achieve, not gonna lie, but... Okay. We're gonna go ahead and warp the 22 minutes. We're gonna also check our rendezvous. Look at target. So yeah, you haven't streamed since Ignition. Really? That's like, it's a month ago. I just haven't been in the mood. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts as a whole. Let me go ahead and, like... Where am I? Am I rendezvousing with the wrong thing? No, where am I exactly? Oh, I'm down there. Here, let me rendezvous with this first. And then I'll share more of my thoughts. Oh, I'm in the atmosphere. I didn't even realize. Hello, RJ the noob. I guess we're going through the atmosphere a little bit. I didn't even realize that was something I was doing. Let me go ahead and, just for the sake of it, just retract these solar panels. Well, I guess while we're warping through the atmosphere, I guess I can share some of my initial thoughts on Ignition. My broad TLDR level thoughts is, I think this is generally a good plan if you ignore the optimistic timelines. NASA needs to have a goal. And not only do they need to have a goal, they need to have a medium to long-term goal that they are working towards, which is something that NASA has never been good at doing, even going back to the days of Apollo. Building a moon base out, yes, that is, because building a moon base out, that provides a good justification for, well, you going back to the moon to the first place, and of course staying. Of course, the broader level justification for all of this is, superpower competition with China and all that. I think before ignition, NASA's sort of long-term plans for what exactly they wanted to do with Artemis, and really a lot of other components, commercial low Earth orbit destinations, sorry, that's a whole other can of worms, were kind of vague. It was more, do Artemis 2, hope that HLS is ready in time, do Artemis 3 as your first landing gateway, and then whatever came beyond that, there really wasn't much of a concrete plan. My internet is dying, so can you save this for like 10 minutes? Yeah, well, give me some more time for my thoughts. Yeah, there's some specifics of it that I find kind of questionable. I think I said the timelines. Some of the I want to get into more. I want to know more details. Is frankly like NASA says, oh yeah, we want to have 12 CLIPS missions next year, which I think is completely unrealistic. You're probably going to have a decent number of CLIPS missions next year, but 12, like, what's the justification behind, I don't know, having X amount of CLIPS missions or Y amount of crewed missions per year and whatnot. I get they want to use Gateway for the lunar base, but at this point they could do that asteroid mission with Orion. Don't bring that back. Listen, a crewed mission to an asteroid, or even capturing an asteroid, is something that you do. Think of that as like Artemis applications, and not as, you don't do that as a programmatic driver. You do that when you have a bunch of your existing assets that you use for lunar and deep space exploration, and you basically combine those together to do that mission. Okay, my internet has returned, I think. Okay. So, just to recap, my broad TLDR level thoughts on ignition is I generally think it's a good plan. If you ignore some of the timelines, I think a lot of the timelines that they're pitching are quite unrealistic. However, I find it very encouraging that NASA has a semblance of a long-term plan, or not even a semblance. Like, this is a long-term plan. I would like to know more details about it all, but it looks to me that there is actually a plan in place, and a plan which seems achievable to me, at least, if you extend the timelines out ever so slightly. And that's something at NASA, because NASA's never been good at long-term planning, even going back to Apollo and Apollo applications, which was, I mean, that's a whole other can of worms. Let me go ahead. Oh, I'm in render range. Hold up. Give me a second. Target. Oh, I'm speeding up compared to the target. Hold up. I gotta like do a. I gotta slam on the brakes real quick. Obviously, the main reason why something like this is happening now is superpower competition. Of course, that's the main overall objective. The reasoning behind having a going back to the moon and having a lunar base. Of course, there's a lot of other perfectly justifiable, scientific reasons and motivational reasons, and developing a space economy and industrial base. I like that there's an actual plan in place, even if, as I said, some of the specifics I would like to know more about. Before, it seemed to me, prepare for flip and burn, make sure your high acceleration drug dispensers are filled. This will be a high G maneuver. This is uncrewed, it's fine. What was I getting at? I probably said the same thing like 5 times already. Oh yeah, before it seemed to me that before this, NASA's plans for medium to long-term plans were rather incredibly vague and almost fantastical. Where the original plan was, okay, you do Artemis 2, and then, you hope HLS is ready. And then you do Artemis 3 as your first landing, and then 4 and 5, you build out Gateway, and then that eventually somehow leads to some sort of sustained presence on the lunar surface, which is ostensibly the goal of Artemis. But it seemed to me that relied on a lot of... I want to say magical thinking, but yeah, I'll go with that. Going from a lunar flyby of just your capsule to a full lunar landing with a very complicated lunar lander without any kind of crude flight test in the middle, it was very unrealistic. The timelines for EUS was very fucked. Gateway is a weird holdover from the immediate post-Constellation period, where NASA was ordered to do things beyond low Earth orbit, but they couldn't. Assumptuous? Yeah. But they couldn't, do the obvious things of a lunar landing or a Mars mission, so they needed to come up with something. It just felt very, it felt that there was a lot missing. That NASA was saying that they were going to do all these things, but the actual... even just the concept of what that would even look like from a vague standpoint just wasn't there. With Ignition, to me it seems like, yeah, okay, there is an actual plan in place to do these things. To build out a sustained presence beyond low Earth orbit, to do lunar missions on a decent cadence. And that plan looks to be, at least, decently achievable if you ignore some of the timelines. I think some of the timelines are very optimistic. Saying, oh yeah, we're going to start building this out, 2028 or so. Something like SR-1 Freedom, which, I mean, that's a whole separate thing. That seems to me very optimistic for a 2028 launch window, even if you are reusing a lot of components that pretty much already exist. Me and Spud have talked about EUS versus Centaur 5, where even if, it might take just as long. Well, actually, I think Centaur 5 will actually, integrating that on SLS will take less time than EUS would have taken, simply because Centaur 5 exists. That's still going to be very difficult to do. I don't know if they can get that by early 2028. I don't think they'll be able to get Artemis 3 by mid-2027. Probably late 2027 at the earliest. Of course, that all depends on what happens with HLS. I don't know, there's just so many things. What are you flying? I'm flying an upper stage. This upper stage delivered a payload into 2 geostationary orbit. And now what I am doing is I'm going ahead and I'm docking it with my fuel depot, which is literally just one of my rockets that I just SSTO'd and into orbit. Yeah, pretty much entirely agree with this assessment. Here's what I'll add. Yeah, go ahead. The funny thing is that in terms of, the timelines for all of this, it depends on what... I know this kind of depends on what exactly they decide to do with Artemis 3, which is... we're figuring that out as we speak. But I actually think Artemis 3 in 2027 is doable. Right now, Artemis 3 is net... They say they want to launch it between March and June, which I think is a bit unrealistic. If you shift that 6 months to the right, I think that's actually somewhat doable, assuming you don't actually need a full version of Starship HLS. Of course, that also depends on, Starship development actually continuing to go well, which, of course, remains to be seen. But it makes it easier because with Starship HLS, with the way, and I was talking about this with Spud, by decoupling Artemis 3 and 4 by inserting Artemis 3 as a low Earth orbit only mission with the HLS landers, or one or both of them. That actually gives SpaceX more leeway, because what it does is, previously, the first test of HLS, the way it was going to work previously, was the first test of HLS was going to be a lunar mission. So you need to do Starship development with as much HLS development as you can do in parallel without having a functional Starship V3. And then you needed to do orbital refueling, and then you needed to do HLS. Where with this, because the first flight of HLS now is going to be a low Earth orbit mission, you can do the HLS development and the orbital refueling development in parallel, which hopefully speeds things up. It de-risks in terms of timelines. It de-risks things in general because you're actually testing the lander before you go to use it, but it also de-risks the timelines where you don't have to. You can develop things in parallel. And that's similar to Apollo, where with Apollo, they developed the lunar module and the command service module in parallel because they had the lunar orbit rendezvous architecture, and that's what allowed them to do that and speed up the program. So, all right. So let's go ahead and we're going to dock this thing. Connection. Okay. But I'll read that in a second. Let me go ahead and actually dock this thing. Let me go ahead and dock this thing, and then I will respond. So, let me go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Nope. I haven't docked anything to anything in about 50 bajillion years, so I might be a tad bit rusty. I do not play as much Kerbal Space Program as I really would like to these days, and that's mostly due to the fact that when you play this game, you actually have to play it for a decent amount of time to get anything done, and B, like school. I talked about this previously, but go ahead and aim the camera right there. Okay. Let me go ahead, move over ever so slightly. What's the... Hey, we can go into... No, not map mode. Where is... Docking mode? There we go. Alright, are we... Okay, we're not fully aligned. We need to go up. Alright. Okay, coming in for the dock. Alright, first docking of an upper stage to our fuel depot. There's the Francis Scott Key Bridge Memorial Probe, as so named by Spud. Okay, let me... Okay. Coming in for the docking. There we go. Excellent. First... Okay, let me read this real quick. Ignition very much feels like the final culmination of this period over the last 10 years, where NASA has slowly been forced to pull itself together post-Constellation because of larger geopolitical factors. I think a lot of this being driven by parties beyond NASA itself, military, industry, finally having actual interests beyond LEO, which give NASA an incentive to exist and not just be a paper dragon. Yeah, there's actual incentives to actually well-fund NASA and actually have them do things. Geopolitical factors, there's a commercial industrial base that's been built up now that has a vested interest in seeing NASA succeed for the simple reason that, hey, if NASA succeeds, they get contracts. It very much feels like the people in charge, well, some of the people in charge, very much Jared Isaacman, I feel like, people running it actually care and about space for first and foremost, where previously it felt like with a lot of the previous administrators like Bill Nelson, with Bill Nelson I sort of like, what did he even do for 4 years? The more that comes out about what NASA, the more that comes out about the Bill Nelson years, and even going back to like Charlie Bolden and whatnot, the more it seems to me that, like, what did you even do? There's an incentive to actually get things done, which is great, because you get things done in space. As spaceflight fans, we like to see that. So watch the Perun video. I fully intend to watch the Perun video at some point. Which is so funny because I actually do occasionally watch him for his military and geopolitical analysis, but every now and then he does a spaceflight thing, which, I mean, I really should watch that. But Bill Nelson was a goddamn mummy, I'm gonna be real. Yeah. What really struck me about Bill Nelson, what really, because after I put a lot of thought about this after Ignition, where, well, it first came into my mind after the Starliner report came out, and where there was this back and forth between people within NASA saying, hey, it's not safe to send these guys, to send Butch and Sonny back on Starliner. Then you had people in NASA and Boeing who said, oh yeah, for the sake of the program, we have to send them back. And there was this internal conflict within NASA about whether or not to do this, when the decision should have been clear. Starliner was basically one fault redundant on its thrusters, and you should not risk a crew in that scenario when you're one fault redundant on reentry thrusters. But yet there were people who were saying, oh yeah, for the sake of the program. And how NASA leadership at the time just kind of let that really just go before, I guess, they finally did make a decision. But there was no hard, like, okay, yeah, for the sake of safety, we don't care what you think. We're sending them down on Dragon. And then with Starship HLS, it seemed, and Starship and even Blue Origin with Blue Moon, over the Bill Nelson administration, I guess, if you want to say, it seemed like, because I remember them always saying, oh yeah, Starship is and Blue Moon, they're the pacing item. And there was like an OIG report that came out recently that basically said that NASA had very little in the way of actual direct oversight over the HLS providers. And that's just like, you're calling out in public your contractors, your subcontractors, or SpaceX and Blue Origin over not delivering and meeting the milestones on Starship HLS. Yet what are you doing to actually help them along? Because if you had actual oversight, you could help them along and say, this is what you're going to do. You need this by this date, actually embedding people within the program. But it seemed that they were more content to just call out the contractors in public and hope that actually motivated them to be sped up rather than actually stepping in and speeding things up. I don't think history is going to look kindly upon Bill Nelson. And then there's the whole Mars sample return, where Mars sample return was effectively canceled, but they kept the program alive by basically spending money to study Mars sample return mission architecture, but never actually officially canceling it. Even though the writing was on the wall for that. Sadly, because I wish MSR was happening, but it's probably not. Okay, let's go ahead and do our post-docking, let's go ahead and do our post-docking, um, uh, activities, I guess you could say. How much fuel do I have left in this? Really, that's it? Not much. So because we're docked now, I'm gonna go ahead and hibernate that. The lights... All the lights are off. Yeah, there we go. I guess some other things I'm going to do is I am actually going to go ahead and disable these RCS thrusters because I do not want these things firing while I'm docked at this station. Okay, and these are already disabled too. Do I keep the crossfeed? Yes, I do. Let's go ahead and shut down that engine. The only engines that are currently activated are the, what is it? These ones at the bottom. So... Also just going to put that into a separate stage. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, first little creature docked. That is excellent. I was just wondering why aren't we generating electric charge? And then I realized, oh wait, we're in the night. If I just warp over to the daytime, we will of course generate our electric charge back up to 100%. Where is this? Is that auto strutted to anything? Auto strut to the heaviest part. Yeah, that's fine. Because that means that's basically auto strutting to that down there. As long as we keep that as the heaviest part, we should be fine. SLS Centaur honestly feels the basic current equivalent of Bridenstach. I'm going to be real. Basically, Eisman's saying to the SLS contractors, get your shit together or I'll kill your program. I'm not kidding, as an incentive method. Hey, that is a very good incentive to to motivate your subcontractors. Man, I was thinking, because, you know, I think there's a general perception now, which I've had this perception basically for the past couple of years, and many people have as well, but I feel like it's way more obvious now that ULA is absolutely screwed. I highly doubt that ULA will survive much beyond the early 2030s. But with SLS Centaur happening, is there a future scenario where NASA wants SLS Centaur to keep going because there isn't a commercial alternative yet to SLS and Orion? So they need to keep SLS Centaur going, but ULA goes under. Is there a scenario where NASA is effectively forced to nationalize, quote unquote, the Centaur tooling for SLS? That was just an idle thought that I was having the other day. But yeah, it really, that's another thing where it really didn't feel like over the past few years, this is something that goes way beyond Bill Nelson for really, gosh, really since the end of Constellation, or the cancellation of Constellation, it really didn't feel like there was much in the way of actual accountability on behalf of NASA and their contractors. If something got horribly delayed, it's like, okay, shrug, move on, and just, genuinely entirely possible. Yeah. Blue, I find it funny. Because I remember when ULA was put up for sale, obviously no one bid because, you're basically buying a dead end at that point. Which is a shame because the best tooling, well, actually, let me collect my thoughts before I ramble my mouth and say something stupid. When ULA was put up for sale, and no one bought, number one, that's very telling. Number two, I know there was a lot of rumors going around that, oh yeah, Blue Origin is going to buy ULA. Which, I mean, if this was like 2016, yeah, absolutely, you would absolutely go ahead and do that. But I feel like Blue Origin made the, this is entirely speculation on my part. I feel like Blue Origin, they made the decision, hey, we don't actually need to buy ULA, we can just slowly eat their lunch. Which is exactly what is going to happen over the next 6 years. ULA will probably not exist after 2030, because they'll probably lose the next round of NSSL unless they really get their stuff together. Not to mention all of the other competition that's entering the market, chiefly Blue Origin, but there are others too. Yeah, they don't need to kill you. They don't need to buy ULA. They just need to. Well, they got Tori Bruno, which was big. They got the 7 launchers from what this is NSSL Phase 3, which gets their foot in the door, and they're gonna be they need 2 more flights for NSSL certification. Which I mean, the second flight is literally in 2 days, unless they've pushed it back again. So that's probably going to happen. They'll probably get NSSL certification by the summer. Or this summer, probably. Depends on when the next New Glenn flight is after this one. They have both Slick 9 at Vandenberg, and now they have Slick 14, which I thought was going to go to Starship. Which I sort of realized that... New Glenn having 2 pads at Vandenberg is probably more for Mega Constellation launches than anything. Leo and Terrawave and whatnot. However, it absolutely does not help if you are bidding for NSSL Phase 4 to say, I have 2 pads at Vandenberg. That does not... Actually, let's try something a bit different. Let's go ahead and just... Let's go ahead and just do a little burn right now to just lower our periapsis. They could also hand it over to the Deep Space Transport LLC that's theoretically supposed to take over SLS eventually, but there's no market for it, so that's not happening. Yeah. SLS is never going to be a commercial rocket. So what is even the deal with Deep Space Transport? It's... Okay, so the way the shuttle program worked was that the way the shuttle program worked was actually not too dissimilar to what Deep Space Transport's supposed to be, where the actual contracting out of the... You obviously had your contractors, you have, well, near the end it was mostly just Boeing with both the orbiter and the external tank, and then ATK with the solid rocket boosters. But Orbital Space, I think it was like USA Space Alliance or something, was basically the company that Boeing and ATK formed to kind of jointly manage their own, the shuttle program. and basically act as the subcontractor that would run the shuttle program for NASA, minus the actual operations of the flights themselves. The deep space transport is basically that. So it's basically that. So it's just the contractors on SLS getting together and basically forming a joint LLC to basically jointly manage their aspects of the SLS and Orion program. With the added bonus that, hey, maybe you can commercialize it, although commercial SLS is never going to happen. So I've been pinged a bunch. Okay. But yeah, ULA. Yeah, I could absolutely see ULA Centaur going to deep space transport in the Estates Tale. Yeah, the interesting thing about it is I've always thought that Centaur is probably ULA's strongest asset. Centaur is a damn good upper stage. And if you actually developed it further, say you developed it into something like ASUS, it could actually be decent. I know there was a lot of theories that, hey, maybe a couple of years ago, that, hey, maybe ULA would get out of the launch market entirely. If sold to another buyer, would get out of the launch market entirely and just focus on, like, upper stages. Like, in-space infrastructure. Which is something that Tory Bruno wanted to do, but of course Lockmart and Boeing wouldn't let him do it. But, I don't really know. I don't really know how viable that is anymore, considering you have, well, something like Starship or New Glenn with GS2 and GS3, which are supposed to be refuelable on orbit. I don't know. ULA is screwed, and I think that's becoming increasingly obvious to anyone with half a brain. But yeah. Vulcan, you know what Vulcan is like? Vulcan is like Delta 3. I was thinking about this because I read the Ars article that you sent me, and just reading through the comments on that, and it's like, my gosh, Vulcan is just the 2020s equivalent of Delta 3. Maybe not directly, because Vulcan hasn't actually had a launch failure yet, but just like Delta 3, it was supposed to be this big thing, the next generation, and then it just kind of flopped. More Delta 3 in spirit than, like, in actual, but... Going for 50 minutes? Okay, I'm docking this thing, and then I'm gonna stop streaming, because, I kind of just wanted to stream and yap and play a tiny bit of Kerbal Space Program. Minotaur C. True. I still think about Omega on occasion. I don't know why. I love how for a period of about 30 years, ATK and later Orbital, ATK, and then Northrop Grumman kept trying to pitch SRB-based launchers, big SRB-based launchers. Actually, the original SRB-X proposal wasn't even originally pitched by ATK. It was pitched by NASA. It was pitched by NASA to the Air Force, because in the early 80s, there were factions within the Air Force which kind of ultimately ended up being proven right, that, hey, maybe we should have a backup to shuttle, in case the shuttle doesn't actually work as intended, and that's how we got Titan 4. Yo, Tandude85, welcome in. I'm just yapping about spaceflight, while also flying, docking one of my upper stages to my fuel depot. But, in the 1980s, there was, I think it was the Complementary Expendable Launch Vehicle program, where the Air Force is like, we're not going to put everything on shuttle. We're going to buy some launch vehicle, another launch vehicle that will basically, if the shuttle goes down, we'll use that as a backup. Amazing VTuber. Thank you, thank you. And that's how Titan 4 came about. And Titan 4 was a nightmare of a program, but that's besides the point. But when the Air Force put out this contract to bid, you had Martin Marietta with Titan 4, you had Lockheed with basically a big Atlas, and then NASA came in and said, hey, how about we just use a bunch of let's just build SRBX and use solid rocket boosters from the shuttle to launch your military payloads. And the Air Force said the whole point is to not use shuttle hardware, so no, we're not doing that. It's really weird. But I do wonder if Omega had actually been built, would they get like Kuiper contracts? That would have been weird to see. But yes, thank you, Tandude85. This is made by, why am I blanking on his name? Because I haven't actually this is a wonderful, wonderful model from Julian Hang, 3D. It is this cost. Actually, this didn't cost as much as I thought it would be. I find it so weird that oftentimes 3D models cost less than live 2D, which I just don't get, because I feel like there's probably more effort having to be put into a 3D, but I'm not an artist, so, but I am very happy. I'm very happy with it. It does everything that I want to do. It looks 3D. It allows me to move. Technically, my arms can move, but I just never bothered to program that. Also, because the arm movement actually kind of looks a bit weird. But I am very happy with it. In fact, I can do things. Wait, hold up. Oh, never mind. I just realized that the hold up. I just realized that because in order to do my toggleables, I need to press Shift Control. But Shift is how you activate the throttle in KSP, so I might need to rebind that, I just realized. I'm not going to do that. Actually, what if I just shut down the engine so I can actually go ahead and demonstrate this? Should add in a redeem that flails the arms for a few seconds. Yeah, I can take off my hat. I have a variety of, little, if I'm angry at someone, or I'm just happy, or I am sad and stinky, as Stinky Fox. I didn't even ask for this one. He just added this in. Oh well. There we go. You should add a redeem that flails the arms for 10 seconds. I could probably, I could probably go into VC face and sorry, I'm turning things down ever so slightly. I could probably go into VC face and just add that in. The thing is, I've been wanting to upgrade a lot of my stream stuff, get a better because my overlay, I made that. My starting soon, be right back, ending soon screen, I made that. I know people are really big on having logos nowadays, which I'm like, okay, I don't really have a logo. I have some emotes, but they're kind of scattered. I was thinking, okay, maybe I should just spend a bunch of money to, obviously I'll keep the model because, I actually like the model, but I'll pay someone to professionally do this. I have not been paying attention to how I've been flying. I am in, well, this happened before where I'm also in the atmosphere now. The burn starts in 2 minutes, which is fine. As long as it gets there, we'll be good. But yeah. And then I spent $600 on a model train because it was rare and I wanted to have it. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm not doing any of my stream upgrades until midsummer, when I actually get my job again and I will be earning income. Because I'm a college student and what I do is I basically save as much money as I can during the summer, minus a trip and a couple of frivolous things here and there. And then I just live off that and whatever money my parents give me for basically 9 months out of 12. So Uh, but yeah, they probably would have done exactly what Vulcan is doing now. In all honesty, actually, yeah, considering Northrop Grumman, considering Northrop Grumman and solid rocket boosters. In retrospect, I don't know if Omega would have actually been too great. It probably would have launched before Vulcan. Or maybe around the same time. But, oh well. Uh, okay. I don't know what I'm going to do after the stream. Probably read some and then go to bed. My phone's at 3%. I should probably plug this in. Hold up. The burn starts in 52 seconds. And down to my charger and plug my phone in. Let me plug. Yes. 9:40. I still have to do work tomorrow, but Saturdays are a day when I actually get to sleep in, which is nice. So okay, 22-second burn. Well, not surface. Orbit. There's the Mun. We could go out to the Mun, but I actually want to save the fuel. So, alright. Up. I forgot I turned off the engine. There we go. I am not paying too much attention, as you can tell. Alright, 9 seconds. 9-second burn. Burn with RCS. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is, well, we have to do one more burn to upload apoapsis to get our periapsis out of the atmosphere. I realize I don't actually mind like dipping a few kilometers into the atmosphere if I you know, dipping a few kilometers in the atmosphere is fine. Yap. I don't know. Aha, yes. Okay. As I said, we'll dock this and I'll end the stream. And tomorrow I actually want to start... I want to work on my crew capsule that I want to fly. So we can start doing, like, crew missions and whatnot. But anyways, okay, there we go. Light that up ever so slightly. Wait, am I an idiot? Wait, what happened here? Oh, this is what happens when you don't pay attention and you just yap. Or I can wait a little bit longer. Or I can just do that. Sorry, this is why you should pay attention when you're playing this game, because then you might do something. That's only 12 meters a second. That's fine. Alright, well, let's warp around a bunch then. Gotta wait a day. Oh yeah, I probably should also deploy these solar panels again, and also, you know... I am tired, and I am making mistakes in my flying. Fuck, brain. Alright, let's go ahead. Wait for this 12 meter a second burn. We can just do that with the RCS. Want to play more KSP. I feel like this summer I'm gonna just play a lot of KSP. I actually want to start doing things. There is nothing that gives me more joy in this game than building large-scale orbital infrastructure. I just really like building space stations. I think my goal for the save might be to have some sort of station basically around some sort of big station around most bodies at some point, but that's like years away. Alright, well, it appears that we are actually going to dock to rendezvous. That'll be nice. Warp complete. Look at target. We want to slow down compared to the target. And our closest approach is at 4 kilometers. So, does it tell you how far your closest approach? Our closest approach 4.1. So, once we get to like 4.3, we'll start to slow down. Okay. Right. Hit the brakes. The orbital brake, per se, which is just firing your engine. Okay. Light the engine. Alright, here we go. We're floating in. And we are going to dock to this thing. Ugh. Okay, we're getting in render range. Man, this is going to look so cool once we have all of the ports on this filled up. I might just build a dedicated tanker for this, or just launch these upper stages as tankers. When I don't have anything else to do, I can just launch these as tankers. That's a lot of fuel in that depot. Okay, we're switching to orbital view now, so... But yeah, SLS. Centaur 5. I'm only saying this because I did briefly check the Discord and saw what you were talking about, Spud. But yeah, I think NASA or Deep Space Transport will rescue the tooling if SLS... Because what? They've only ordered 3 Centaur 5s for SLS, 1 for 4, 1 for 5, and then a flight spare. However, it is my expectation that SLS will probably continue flying until a commercial alternative for it comes about, which will probably be in the early to mid-2030s. Also, because Congress really likes SLS, because, you know, it's their baby after all, so I highly doubt they'd want to cancel it before any alternatives arise. So, they'll probably, you know, just take over the tooling. Okay. We're coming in. Now, for this, I actually want to try... How do we want to go about doing this? Like, what port do we actually want to dock at specifically? Do we want to balance things out, or do we want to try to dock right next to the other probe, the other core, just as a stage, just as a test? I mean, it's a space station. It doesn't necessarily have to be symmetrical. That's kind of the point. So I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to dock to the right next to the other probe. The other stage, I mean. And look, we're even coming in at the right angle for it. Slow down. I don't want to collide with this station mirror style. So, okay. We want to dock to there. Okay, here we go. LV004. Man, I feel like when the first Starship Depot flies, I'm gonna be unreasonably happy. Because I just find orbital fuel depots such a cool thing. Such a cool concept. And it sucks that they don't exist. So when the first Starship Depot flies, I will be incredibly happy. I'm like, oh my gosh, large-scale orbital infrastructure. Uh... Something that Richard Shelby joke that was 10 years ago. I find it incredibly hilarious that the big part of the reason why we even got SLS to begin with was because of lobbying against orbital fuel depots. And yet the Artemis program is basically contingent on large-scale orbital refueling and orbital fueling depots to actually work. I just find that to be the height of irony in terms of spaceflight. Okay. Actually, you want to know spaceflight jokes which are now completely irrelevant that I think might come back in a second form. You know how the joke about Blue Origin like 5 years ago was one day they're just gonna roll a completed New Glenn out of the factory and it'll be ready to go for launch. And then, well, that didn't exactly happen, but it was pretty something like it kind of did happen. I think it's gonna be the same with Starship HLS. We're just gonna be going about our day in about 10 months' time, and then we'll just see major HLS hardware just roll out of nowhere for Artemis 3. Lol, yeah, hopefully. Well, here's the thing about the Artemis 3 HLS. It doesn't need to be a full HLS. It just needs to be, like, to borrow a phrase from Jared, a 70% solution HLS. And, well, a lot of the components are common anyways. So, I know there's this theory that Ship 44, because Ship 44's whereabouts have been completely unknown for the last couple of months. They took the nose cone and they just shepherded it off somewhere and we don't know where it is. I know the joke is, the theory is that might be the HLS for Artemis 3, but I don't know. But yeah, but I don't know, just due to the nature of just how the Starship program functions, I think it is entirely feasible that a more HLS hardware exists already than some people might think. But the flip side is that no HLS hardware also might exist, and they're just focusing on getting Block 3 functional before they do anything with that. So, SpaceX have a cabin that's theoretically flight hardware according to them, but no one knows or what's seen it. Was that HLS mock-up that they had? I know there was an HLS mock-up at Starbase that existed for a while. Um, I don't think that's what you're talking about, but it might be. I don't know. Because I don't think that was flight hardware. As Brian in the Discord, he brought it up. Okay, okay. Okay, we are docked. Now it's time to go ahead and just do the standard, uh, I guess you can call it stage decommissioning. Uh, RCS enabled. For those... Oh, they're flashing in unison. That's really funny. RCS disabled, RCS disabled. Okay, yeah, that was fairly straightforward. I did give myself enough clearance to actually dock these things, which is nice. So that proves out all of that basically. Hibernate on, hibernate on. Oh, there's a little bit of oxidizer that I've not transferred in. And then shut down engine. There we go. We have our second stage docked. We have our first two stages docked. Two are to the Calypso A orbital fuel depot. Let me just turn that off. Yeah. Okay, there's a couple of things that we could do going forward. I could work on my crew vehicle, right? This is for tomorrow, just planning for tomorrow. Work on the crew vehicle, get a flight test of that up, and then go to Moho. Design a Moho probe. Or we could just rapid fire launch tankers in order to fuel this up fully. We could do that. Or, you know, the secret third option, of course, is... Because I was thinking for our crew vehicle, we just use basically a... what is it, like an Odysseus 1C, basically, which is just the 3 cores, and then the actual crew vehicle, which is probably going to look like Big Gemini and TKS. Will just be launched on the 3 core, no upper stage. Or we could include the upper stage, and we can just fly those to here. So anytime we launch a crew out somewhere, the upper stage can also just go here and refuel. So, honestly, not going to be able to tune in tomorrow. Probably going to be wadding in a creek for fossils. Go wad in a creek for fossils. That's far more interesting and cool than whatever I'm going to be doing. But yeah, theoretically speaking, hold up, let me go ahead and just do a bit of quick calculations real quick, like, incredibly rough and dirty calcs. I don't have a calculator on me, but I do have my phone, which is basically, it's also a calculator. I don't know, because I'm a college student taking college math classes, my immediate thought is, I need to grab an actual calculator. So, I don't know. Let's just base this off like liquid fuel. I mean, calculation is probably going to be the same regardless. So, 20160. So 20,000 units of liquid fuel. How much does that hold? That holds 1760. Okay, so it would take... Let's just round that down, because we already have a bit of fuel. It would take 11 flights. Possibly more. More like... Well, actually, you have to account getting this into orbit and then doing the rendezvous. So this would probably take like 13 flights to fuel up. Hey, just like Starship HLS. Do we would just want to start rapid fire doing these missions? Do I just lock in tomorrow and just fuel these up? Just ignore the Moho transfer window? We have a dual transfer window in 77 days, too. I don't know. I'll think about that tomorrow. Because I started building this, and I'm like, what exactly am I going to do with this? I want a fuel depot, and I want a space station to go along with it. Not docked to this thing, obviously, but... Actually, it would be very weird if we just built the space station out along this axis over here. That would be incredibly weird, but I think I'll probably just keep them separate and put in similar orbits. You could just lob the thing at Moho and then launch the tankers while it's in transit. Oh yeah, that's fair. And the Moho probe probably isn't going to be anything special. It's probably just going to be a, well, a basic probe to Moho. Alright, well, I think we're good for today. Oh, let me switch back to that. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Spud. Thank you, Tandude. Thank you, RJ the Noob. Thank you, Gam and Crimson. I will be back tomorrow. I guess what we're going to do is we're just going to start lobbing tankers at this and seeing what happens. Let's see. Good night, night, guys. Let's go ahead and just... I don't know. I'm always, like, conscious about rating people, so that's why I don't really do it a lot of the time. Oh well, I think I'm just gonna end it here. So, thank you all for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Rate a streamer I know. I like who? X Shrimps. Okay, I will raid X Shrimps. I have no idea who this person is, so if anything happens, blame Spud. Hold up, let me go ahead and do this. Stream manager, sorry, I accidentally closed out of my stream manager. But yeah, we're gonna raid this person who's playing this game that I have actually seen before. X Shrimps. I'm gonna raid this person. So because Spud, my dearest viewer Spud, told me to. So, anyways, thank you all for watching. I will see y'all in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.